who the prosecutor is, why the prosecutor has brought the case, and whether the prosecutor survives political attack all matter, especially when it comes to Donald Trump. There's a leftover case in Georgia. It was the one that got the most attention at the moment in Fulton County, led by Fani Willis, who is the Fulton County DA, but got taken off the case by, let's be frank, a bunch of white judges who didn't like her relationship that she was having with a special prosecutor on the case. And that led to a series of cascading domino effects, and now the dismissal of the Trump prosecution in Georgia. Why did it happen? Should it have happened? And is there corruption around it happening? We cover it on Legal AF, the podcast. And for this one, I got a special Easter egg on Thanksgiving Friday. Special guest appearance by the one, the only, my daughter, Francesca Popok. And here's a clip. Welcome back to the Thanksgiving family edition of Legal AF. Yes, this is Francesca, my daughter, for those that are wondering, future podcaster, president of the United States, and or Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. You be the judge. But I wanted to I saw Ben brought in his daughter. I was like, wait, I want to bring in my daughter to work.
She's so gorgeous. She's so gorgeous. Hi, Francesca. Look at that little face.
That's Aunt KFA. Hey,
that's the face of a future Supreme Court justice. That's what I see.
Legal AFers. All right, let's pick it up with Georgia, and I'll turn it over to you, Karen, while I take care of my daughter for a second. Georgia, there was a prosecution. It was brought by somebody named Fani Willis. Remember that? It was so long ago. Fani Willis decides she's got a RICO case, racketeering, and that so long, baby. And that she's going to bring it against Donald Trump and a whole bunch of other people, including Rudy Giuliani and all of his lawyers. And it looked so great. And at one point it was leading. And then your old office, Alvin Bragg, he got ahead with his prosecution. And then what happened?
Well, Fani Willis had an unfortunate relationship with her lead prosecutor that then called everything into question, and the case spiraled out of control, and she was ultimately taken off the case, and they were looking for another prosecutor to prosecute the case. And what just came out is in Georgia, there's a head prosecutor or a consortium of prosecutors that they all belong to. And the president of that basically said, I couldn't find another prosecutor who would take this case. Nobody wanted to touch it. Besides, you couldn't prosecute a sitting president until after the president is no longer president, so we'd have to wait for 3 years for that. And besides, presidential immunity has come down, and so we'd have to sort through all the immunity questions, and essentially just said, we're dismissing this case. The prosecutor, this prosecutor also said, which I thought was ridiculous. I mean, all of those things are disappointing, but I understand them. What I thought was ridiculous was he said that call to Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State of Georgia, saying, find me the 11,800 and whatever number of votes, that could be interpreted in two different ways. And when there's ambiguity and things can be interpreted in two different ways, the tie goes to the defendant, which is a concept in criminal law. But there is no way, in my opinion, you can say with a straight face that was what Trump was doing. He was absolutely trying to have there be basically trying to get fraud, find fraudulent votes is I think pretty clear. Anyway, that's a question for the jury to decide. And he was indicted by the grand jury. And that's not the only charge. It was a sweeping RICO case that you can't just look at that one phone call out of context. You have to look at it in the context of everything else that he was charged of doing, like getting fake electors to come in and all the other schemes that were going on. I mean, 18 people were indicted, and it was a huge, sweeping, very long indictment that had charge after charge and RICO predicate after RICO predicate and overt act in the conspiracy. I mean, it listed out such a web of lies and fraud and deceit. And when you look at that phone call in the context of the entire case, there is no way, in my opinion, that you can say, well, he could have just been saying, oh, look, I'm questioning the election and there could be irregularities. So let's look for the irregularities. I mean, I think that just is bananas. So I think I'm really disappointed that he said that. But the bottom line is no one in Georgia, no prosecutor is willing to touch it with, a 20-foot pole, that they think it's a political hot potato, and no one wants to get under Trump's ire. He also said, by the way, this is more appropriately brought by special counsel Jack Smith, but that case was dismissed because he has immunity. How is it more appropriate for Jack Smith if Trump has immunity? That makes no sense either. So it's just clear that they didn't want to touch it. Georgia is basically a red state, and they don't want to go after Trump because you do that and it has consequences for people who are elected. I still support Fani Willis. I don't think her personal relationship is anyone's business, and certainly is not a disqualification for this case. I think that was a little bit of a hatchet job on a Black woman in the South. And I think she brought a incredible case. She'd put a lot of work into it. It was a righteous prosecution. And I'm thankful that she at least brought to light all of the abuses of all of the individuals that participated in that scheme, and that will be a record in history going forward. And even if nothing happened with it, it's not going to get completely swept out of the record books of history. So, but that case is over for now, or forever, I guess.
And then you got the crazy House Oversight and Judiciary Committee going after Jack Smith and Jack Smith's prosecutors. Who's going to take? I mean, I give you a lot of credit for being a prosecutor for 30 years. Who want to take this job, especially when you're being attacked for just doing your civil service, just doing in a non-political way where the facts lead you, and wielding your particular prosecutorial power in the right way. I mean, the fact that Jack Smith even has to answer to these yahoos in the House, and it's not helping them. If they thought, they didn't obviously get the memo of what's happened since the shutdown and since election night in America and since the Epstein scandal has so spectacularly blown up in the face of Donald Trump. And the fact that after yet another year of high prices and no relief in sight, and a president that seems completely out of tune with the sufferings of America, and even goes out of his way to make Americans suffer, that they still think that people care about them going after Jack Smith, or it doesn't boomerang and hit them back in the head. That's not what it looks like to the American people. It looks like an out-of-control, deranged MAGA elected officials doing Donald Trump's bidding, what's left of them, to the detriment of the American people. I just saw a number before we came on the air today. Get this number, Karen. The American people are going to foot the bill for over $300 million for Donald Trump to go golfing while he's in office. $300 million.
Popok, you just reminded me of something when you said who in their right mind would do this, right? Who in their right mind would be a prosecutor and subject themselves to this? I was a prosecutor, as you said, for 30 years, and the last third of my time, I was the number 2 at the Manhattan DA's office. And when Cy Vance, the Manhattan DA, told me that he wasn't going to run again, I had to make a choice, because whoever the next DA was going to be certainly would want to bring in their own number 2. So I had to decide, do I want to run for office myself? And do I want to be the next Manhattan DA? Or do I want to leave and go do something else? And I actually went through the process of thinking about running and going through what it would be like to your family, to your life, to be a politician, a prosecutor in this day, right, with what everything is going on. And I ultimately made the choice that I made, which is not to run. But I think about all the time what you just said, which is what all these people who do make that choice, these amazing public servants who give up so much of their privacy, they're the people who are getting attacked by the President of the United States and others who he has appointed, who are getting doxxed, who are getting these terrible bomb threats, these fake bomb threats at their houses, who have to have security 24/7, who have their personal lives turned upside down, and who are completely just attacked for just being normal people. And yet these are people who are public servants. They don't make a lot of money, and they are here to serve us, and we abuse them. And I don't mean us, but our society right now, because of who the president is. And so it's really, I just hold people who do make that choice to be prosecutors and to devote, to make the sacrifices that they're making, especially now, which is an unprecedented time. Those are people who deserve our praise and who deserve our support. And I just want to give a shout out to them and the judges and all the other public servants out there who are upholding the rule of law and who are trying to do the right thing, because the Department of Justice right now is unrecognizable. What is happening in the Department of Justice and the prosecutors who are there, the things they are being asked to do and not do is beyond atrocious what's happening. So I hope when the Democrats are back in office and we can return our society back to a society of laws and order and justice and not political vengeful retributions and bringing cases that don't exist out of thin air against people like James Comey or Letitia James, all the people, Adam Schiff. These are all public servants. These are people who have sacrificed to serve us, and being a public servant is not easy. So I'm just appalled. I'm absolutely appalled at what's going on.
And to our audience, and back to my point about 2026 being so important, in the last week, I've had interactions with like 13 or 11 attorneys general for the Democrats live and in person when I went out to Arizona to interview them. And the product of that is now up on Legal AF YouTube channel. And I spoke to Lee Galert, who's the head of the immigration litigation division of the American Civil Liberties Union. And they all unsolicited said effectively the same thing, which is and they're talking about the lawyers that are in the courtrooms on the front line and are the first responders. We need you, Legal AF, and your audience and the support that you're giving us. That's the heavy artillery that's pinning down the elected officials as we do battle in the courtrooms. And they put it in those terms, almost in those exact terms. And it was interesting because to hear from the actual newsmakers is the wrong word, the actual litigators and trial lawyers and organizations that are in the courtrooms every day. When we learned that the Democratic attorneys general talk every other day, all 23 of them and their staff, about how to defeat the Trump administration and its lawlessness every other day in a way that they never did before. The ACLUs of the world, the democracy forwards of the world, they say they can't do their job without our support, without our audience, without the coverage that we provide for them. It's not ego. It's not like, I got 300,000 views on my video, interviewing Lee about the new case. It's the attention that is brought to bear on an issue and how it impacts the body politic and those in power. And that made everything that you and I and Ben do on Legal AF World and our contributors there, it made it all worthwhile to hear that from their perspective, they need not just us, Legal AF, the channel, the platform, but they need our audience to be focused on these things. And they're so respectful and they're so supportive of everything that we do here. And I wanted to accept that compliment and praise on behalf of our audience, but I wanted to talk about it here on our Thanksgiving edition.
I love that, Popok. That's like, I have the chills. That's like the most wonderful thing I've ever heard. That's like, Thank you for saying that, because I love our audience too so much, and just the community that has developed. And I'm so happy that they also recognize how important they are and what a part of that, just what's going on, and how important it is to stay informed and to know what the issues are, and to be a part of, the people who show up at these protests, right? And the people who, the No King's Day, and it's because people are involved and engaged. And I just think it's so wonderful. So thank you for sharing that story.
Absolutely. And thank you to our Legal AF audience. We got big things planned here in resistance, if you will, on Legal AF. Welcome back. We do it on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We sit at the intersection of law and politics so you don't have to. Legal AF, the podcast. It's the foundation upon which all Legal AF work is based. My curating of the channel that I created called Legal AF, the YouTube channel, which needs some help here, folks. We're trying to get over that threshold, get to that 1 million subscriber threshold. And with that, we will have the street cred that we need to continue to grow, bring on the contributors, bring on the guests, get the interviews, cutting edge in the courtroom type things that you become accustomed to. Become a member. If you can swing it, you want to help us pay the bills, stay on the air, pay for the editors, pay for the travel into the courtrooms and things like that, come over to Legal AF Substack and hit the free subscribe button there. And if you can swing a paid membership for less than $7 a month, now would be a great time to do it as we round into 2026. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.